So, I need to, because although, even though this is the first time on these pre-recorded videos, I need to address this. Excuse me. Oh my god, really? That's how we're starting? Yeah. But yeah, no. So, I am a little bit behind on my recording, so I kind of need to get going on that. So, Valkyria Chronicles. Chronicles. First of all, let's start with, of course, my notes. 1, 2, and 3. So 3 pages of notes. This might be a bit on the long side, so bear with me. So, first and foremost, let's talk about the very nature of Wolf's Den itself. I know this sounds weird, but it kind of is funny to me just how many things I have covered on my show that the Lore Runner has covered on his show, right? Because as of the time of recording this, if you include the next game I'll be talking about, I will have covered there's only going to be like 3 things that I have covered that the Lore Runner has not. Those, of course, being Sky 2, Sky 3, and the next one, which is, of course, Fire Emblem Warriors. Ugh, because I am so looking forward to talking about that game. Ugh, but anyways, let's not talk about that right now. I find it interesting that this was actually one of the ruminations of the Lore Runners that I was dreading. Because, well, the Lore Runner has gone on record and has said it in the stupidest way possible that he doesn't care, that he has not liked any anime that has been put in front of him. Because I could make a joke and just say, oh, it's because he doesn't like good stories. No, I'm not going to be that mean. It's the art style that more doesn't appeal to him. And I suppose that's fair enough, but I am a big fan of anime, and to just say, and to just hear somebody like basically say, "Oh, I'm sure there's good anime," it's like, you can analyze something and find it to be good despite you not caring for the genre, right? I mean, I know a good horror movie when I see one, and I hate horror movies usually. Usually, horror movies tend to just not work for me. But anyways, my point, and also the whole by the way, speaking of genres, the whole generalization of anime as a genre, which is just ugh. Anyways, god damn it. So, oh, I have to admit that this game came out at a time when I was just starting to discover my love of tactical RPGs. I hadn't gotten back into Fire Emblem yet uh, after the how do I put this? Uh, Basically, Fire Emblem had been one of those. God damn it, hey buddy, fuck off. Fire Emblem had been one of those franchises that was dead to me, you know. Eh, In the West, funny enough, it wasn't quite dead because I'm pretty sure Shadow Dragon came out in 2010, but effectively to me, I did not see myself ever returning to the Fire Emblem franchise. I had played Sacred Stones and loved that. I had played Blazing Sword and dropped it pretty damn quickly. I was an asshole to Path of Radiance. Teenage me was a fucking asshole, okay? There's no nice way to say that, okay? I was a graphics whore in my teen years, and I am still ashamed of that to this day. Moving on. If my cord could stop being caught by my foot, that would be wonderful. But at the same time, I'm, I'm I was just starting to find out my love of tactical RPGs. Two games in particular around this time, because this was originally a PS3 game, actually started to kind of get me to realize how much I like tactical RPGs. It was this game, and of course, Final Fantasy Tactics, which I absolutely adore. This game spoke to me in a way I can't really describe. This is a game that I feel like I have played this game multiple times, and it's another one of those I love it even more every time, right? We all have games like that where we play through them and then we play through them again, and every time our love for the game just gets deeper and deeper and deeper, right? I mean, it wasn't until I went back through and kind of replayed uh fuck off. Ugh. It wasn't until I had replayed Cold Steel 1, for example, that I was reminded of how good that game was. And how surprisingly good Cold Steel 2 was, even though I don't much care for it. So, let's go ahead and start with the gameplay. I guess I should actually start with the fact that this is also the second game that I've ever reviewed, reviewed where I actually scored it. So, yeah, I of course use the positives and minuses system of the Lore Runner. This game got a net score of plus 34 to story and plus 21 to gameplay, which, if you're paying attention, that means that the positives outweighed the negatives 30 by plus 34, and the gameplay outweighed the negatives by a factor of plus 21. I don't even remember if the gameplay got above 10, but at the same time, yeah. Basically, the idea is anything that's good gets a plus, anything that's bad gets a negative. Anything that adds to my enjoyment is a plus, anything that detracts is a negative. That kind of a thing. Let's go ahead and start with the gameplay, though, shall we? First of all, can I just say, I love the way the combat is structured. Because the way it is you have your units, which are displayed by their class symbols. I'll talk about the classes a bit later. And you have these little badges at the top of the screen. Those are your CP, your command points, right? Sorry. Anyways, so God damn it, I can't stop yawning today. God. It's another one of those days. Yeesh. So, so command points, right? There's these little badges, and each foot unit takes up one command point. Whereas tanks take up two, and and I do like the fact that if you hover the cursor over a unit, it'll actually remind you of how many points that unit takes to move, right? Fuck off, buddy. God damn it. So, and that actually is certified in your tank, which is simultaneously was a positive and a negative to gameplay, because utilizing it is awesome, but at the same time, if it goes down, then that's instant game over, which is just fucking really. So yeah, so let's talk about the classes first of all. So you have your tank, obviously. Then you have your scouts, which are exactly what they sound like. Like, they're meant to go get info and report back. Shock troopers, which are basically your main attackers. Hackers. Lancers, which are meant for taking down tanks. Tanks. You have your engineers, which are meant for clearing mines, which are all over the goddamn place and got a gameplay negative. And for refilling ammo to, say, lancers, or the next class, which are snipers, which, yeah, snipers, people who carry sniper rifles, self-explanatory. The idea being that these are units that pick enemies off from a distance. So, yeah. And I love the variety. None of the units ever felt useless in this game. Like, none of the unit types ever felt like they were useless. Every single one has their perks, right? Taking down enemies early is the purview of the snipers. Again, removing mines so they don't cause damage, and repairing sandbags for cover and stuff like that. That's awesome. And that's all awesome stuff. The Lancers, like I said, take down tanks. Shock troopers are meant to get rid of enemies. Scouts are meant for spotting enemies. It's all good stuff. So then, we have the HQ menu, which I also like the idea of book mode. So you go to headquarters, and there's basically a list of things that you can do. There's the barracks, where you can outfit individual characters with different weapons you've acquired, including the R&D developed class-wide weapons. There's another fucking yawn attack, because why would my body let me get through this? God damn it. So there's the barracks, there's the command room, where you can actually swap out different characters. There's the training field, which I'll explain in a minute. The R&D facility, where develop enhancements to the tank and your weapons, which is cool. Castlefront Street, which actually has more to do with story than gameplay, because this is where you basically get extra info get some world building info. It's basically the world building option, is what it is, and that's where you can also buy the side stories, which are called reports, which are actually kind of cool. Then you have then you of course have so then it's Castlefront Street, so it's barracks, command room, training field, R&D, Castlefront Street, then there's the war cemetery, where you can actually meet an aged gentleman who will actually teach you orders. Orders, which are of course special basically there's special abilities for Welkin that cost command points to use. There's a whole lot of them. There's requesting the medic if a unit is downed. Units don't die right when their HP hits 0. The enemy has to touch them, or they have to be sitting there in a down state for 3 turns in order to do that. Which you prevent by either getting a character to get up to the downed unit, in which case they'll call for the medic. Call the medic, which So then you call in the medic, you get them out of there. So there's actually an order that can actually get a medic request to actually get them out of there, and it's the same as if Vulcan went up and touched them. So that's good. I used that a lot on my earlier playthroughs. There's also retreat, where if they're in a precarious situation, or you just need room to clear the field, so that way you can get more units. You can just have a unit retreat who's in the thick of it, and then they retreat to the barracks. Which is funny because you can actually then request them to then come out on the next turn, if you have enough command points left, that is. So that's good. So then I skipped over to the training field. This is where I noted, I stated in I actually gave this a gameplay plus, believe it or not. I stated in on stream that the how do I put this? God damn it, my body is really pissing me off today. Everything's pissing me off today. I'm actually recording this when my internet went down. Which is, yeah, my internet is down, which means I am basically not able to tell people in any form that I'm not going to be streaming for like a week. Ugh. But anyways, let's go ahead and talk about but anyways, to get back to the classes, so you go to the training field, and it's weird because you would think, oh, it's basically just put a unit in and have them train. No. The leveling goes by class. I gave an anti-grind positive basically for this because leveling by class is actually a very nice idea, and I wish more games would do this. Basically, the idea is any unit that comes into your party is going to be at level with the rest of your class, right? The rest of their class. So if you have, say, level 15, or no, sorry, I'll go lower than that. Like level 10 shock troopers, then if a new shock trooper comes in, they will of course be level 10, right? Same with the scouts, same with the lancers, same with the engineers, and same with the snipers. So basically, you level up as a class. Effectively, what you're doing is you're leveling up the class, and each character just has stat modifications based upon their class and upon their characteristics. So that's actually kind of nice. I like that. God damn it! These yawn attacks need to fuck off already. So that's all well and good. Oh, that might be why. I may need to eat something after. Anyways, the very nature of leveling up by class is something that I wish more RPGs, more, especially more tactical RPGs would implement, right? Now, don't get me wrong, there are reasons to do individual leveling and there are reasons to do other stuff, but it just feels like that would be a kind of a nifty catch up mechanic. Like, basically, have you level up each class, and then, like, for example, in Fire Emblem Three Houses, which from my perspective is the next game that I'm streaming, but not the next game I'm covering on Wolf's Den. Like, let's say that would actually be a nifty idea, right? Level up each of the classes, and then when a new unit comes in, like say they're like a level 10, level 5 noble, well then they have some bonuses applied to them because of the I've leveled up the noble class to like level 7 or whatever, right? So yeah, that's all good stuff. Anything else? Well, I guess we can get into individual stuff. There's a battle in Chapter 6, which is a desert map. That can go to hell. That map was just a slog to get through because of the sandstorm. And It really can, and you can be also be screwed over because again, the whole Edelweiss fail state, which I've already talked about. Lose the tank, link, lose the map. So that sucks. Oh, I guess I should also talk about the problems, the whole Achilles heel of the tanks. So they have a radiator which they need to effectively. It's basically acts as a cooling system so that the person in the tank doesn't freaking fry, right? Well, well, yeah, if a rocket gets launched into that because it's on the outside, because why wouldn't it? Then yeah, it's going to go ahead and blow up the tank, right? So yeah, that kind of makes a battle with two tanks that could aim at your butt, that if you're not careful, uh, even worse than it already was. Which is funny because that actually leads into a gameplay positive I gave, which was the battle against the Batamus, which was a boss tank. Which is funny because that's not the only boss tank in the game, but we can get into that a bit more or later. The Batamus was such a fun fight because the idea is you're supposed to get these ruined walls down, so that way the Batamus has to fire its main cannon, which causes it to have to cool the engines after the main cannon fires, in order to is done through three radiators. So you have to take out the guns on the sides of of the Batamus, get a foot soldier up that has grenades up that ladder, and then go ahead and throw a grenade into the radiators to get rid of them. Then you can finally start launching lances at it in order to defeat it. Oh, and then an invincible enemy also shows up when you get I think it's like one or two of the Once you get one or the two of the radiators out, you have to deal with an invincible enemy, which is fun. Which is fun. It actually is. It's actually more fun than you would think because invincible enemy. Ugh, right? But no, it actually works in that regard. Also, as an aside, I love the music in this game. I gave it 2 gameplay pluses. Uh, Then there was, of course, Chapter 8, which was the Woodland Snare. I hated both of the maps in that chapter because some chapters have multiple maps. One of them was a stealth mission where if you lose either of the two characters involved, all which are Welkin and Alicia, by the way, hey, then yeah, you lose. You just auto lose the map. Also, Alicia's ankle is hurt, so her movement is more limited. Yeah, it's as sucky as it sounds. So let's talk about why the mines were a gameplay negative, shall we? They're all over the goddamn place, and sometimes they're placed where if you're not paying attention, which is easy to do so, you will walk onto a mine and get blown up. Which for a scout or engineer is basically instant kill and will severely hurt a shock trooper. It's really goddamn annoying. The only thing that keeps that from being multiple negatives is they don't place them in a way where you can basically chain detonate them. So because that would just suck. Also, smaller mines can be just ran over with your tank with no damage. So cool. There's my note about the Edelweiss fail state, because by that point that was really getting cemented. Then there's a report you can get, which is Largo's veggie mission. So the idea is it's a stealth operation where you basically have to get Largo up to a certain point so that he can go blow up some tanks. Yeah, it's as silly as it sounds. It works for what it is, though. Oh, so that was a fun romp. That's all story. Then there's decorations, which were basically achievements before achievements were a thing. Because remember, the PS3 did not actually start its lifespan by offering trophies. That is a feature Sony had to implement later, which sucks. Hooks, but there it is. So then we go liberate a town called Fausen, and that's when we get Zaka joining up after it, with his second tank, the Shamrock, which was more often than not the thing that got left behind. Which eventually would be an interesting challenge run. Treat every character's death as if the Edelweiss had been destroyed. Hmm. Nice. We also fight a rail car called the Equus, in which we have to basically blow up the bridge in order to go ahead and the rail bridge that it's an armored train car, which you basically have to blow up the bridge when it's in position to deal with it, which is cool. So then we get smoke rounds basically. Smoke rounds basically allow you to be concealed so that enemies can't spot you. It's kind of like the problem. It's basically if you could control the problem with the sandstorm. We're back in chapter 6, which is awesome. So then some story stuff happens that is awful. Then we finally go and reclaim the opening town, which is just a great chapter. Which is more great because of the gameplay story integration, but I'm gonna save that for the spoiler section because of course I am. Let's see. Then there's the battle in the Magyar. There's the first battle in the Magyar Plains, which is actually just all really cool stuff. This is where the reports actually start giving us some variety in the types of objectives in the maps, which is always a good thing. Hey, in my blunt opinion. Even if I did give a negative for one of them because it's a survival map, which is just, if you don't position your units right, can easily be failed, and I hate that. Excuse me. Now, I'm trying to be vague on purpose to not spoil story beats, but let's just say that there's one boss in particular who, the invincible enemy, actually comes at you when she's not invincible, and it's actually a fun fight, which was easier than I remember it being. And I was like, I literally had this reaction on stream of like, where because I got it because you're ranked at the end of each map, and you are giving uh more exp and money the better you do, right? I was shocked because the max rank is actually A, and I actually got an A rank. I actually got an A rank on that fight, even though I thought it was going to be a B rank, which is hilarious. So then there's the chapter Maiden's Shield, which is actually kind of a fun lead the lead the in the another invincible enemy along a path, which is funny because it is effectively a shrinking terrain map, which is actually kind of cool. Which you would think would be crap, but it's actually kind of cool, and I like it. Then we face a dude, Ood in his tank battalion, in which you basically have to capture a bunch of camps in order to be able to keep him from having his armor restored. Because you have to get through the armor, then you have to get through his tank. Then you face down the giant behemoth of a tank that you were running from in Maiden's Shield, basically because you have to stop a weapon that it has acquired. So yeah, like I said, we'll get into that more when we get into the story section. Then there's New Game Plus, which just carries over all your stuff, which is great. That's how New Game Plus should be. Then there was the DLC, which actually, believe it or not, cemented it simultaneously gained and cemented into a total of, and I shit you not here, 4 gameplay negatives. One is actually for the cutscenes being unskippable in battles specifically, and then there was 3 for the DLC itself, which is just included in every version of the remaster. They're built in. So, which was Challenge of the EDA Detachment, which was a bunch of random skirmish matches, which are basically just challenge maps. Those were not very good in my opinion. Then there's the DLC story Enter the Edie Detachment, which is not very good. And then there's Behind Her Blue Flame, which I actually did give. I did go ahead and give. Uh, I did give a negative 2, but I also gave 2 pluses too. So there's that. How long have I been talking so far? Oh, wow, only a half an hour. I mean, I've been blazing through it, but that's just because I really like this game. But I do really like this game on the gameplay axis, but it's the story that intrigues me. So, now we're officially in spoilers territory. So, full spoilers now. Spoilers. I'll give you a countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So this is an alternate history, if you couldn't tell from the whole tanks thing. But I like the idea of it's effective, which is funny because my first note is actually about Ragnite. Yes, a small country is getting invaded for a natural resource. I'll just go ahead and let you figure out what event from the past 20 years I could be talking about and move on. So then we have the Empire versus the Federation. I have made the joke before that the Empire versus the Federation is basically just Star Trek versus Star Wars with, like, I don't know, maybe Farscape in the middle or something. I don't know. I just find it kind of funny. So then we have Gallia, which is a neutral state, which, yeah, at that point it's really just politics. It's funny because a lot of the nature of the background stuff is a lot more political than you might think, right? So because you have, how do I phrase this? You have political infrastructure being the core element of this story, right? It's basically a war to reclaim your home, but it's just a lot more complicated than that. And I do like the nature of the idea of Gallia effectively breeding people who fight for their home, right? So then there's Welkin and Alicia. I love these two. I'm a sucker for. Okay, let me be as blunt as I can. I am a sucker for romance. I always have been. Now, and the better written a romance is, the better for me. Which I honestly do believe that the romance between Vulcan and Alicia is really well written. I would absolutely pit Vulcan and Alicia's romance with any other romance in fiction, even some of the more popular ones, like say Locke and Ellis from Final Fantasy VI, right? What's funny is I absolutely love the idea. How do I phrase this? I just love the idea of their romance. What I don't much care for is the racism associated with Darksons, which basically are people with dark hair. Basically, if you have black hair, you are considered a Darkson and you are discriminated against. Because history is written by victors, and the Valkyr were frickin' assholes. Told you we were in full spoiler mode. We were. I told you we were in full spoiler mode. The. The. And the Valkyr basically rewrote history in order to paint the Darksons as evil when it was them who were actually the aggressors. Yeah. Which unfortunately bleeds off into a character named Rosie. Bridget Stark, aka Rosie. Oh boy. So let's just go ahead and get this out of the way. No, Rosie does not suffer from what I call Oscar Ava syndrome, which, to reiterate, I've said this in so many of these, is complete bitch, but sympathetic backstory, so we can't hate them. Oh, and they get better later, so can't hate them. See, the problem with that is that they are still fucking irritating, and they are still get off my screen characters, even though they get better. You know, I know several characters where where the sympathetic backstory literally makes it so that the damage is already done. Katsuki Bakugo from My Hero Academia coming to mind immediately. Yes, I know he is probably one of the more beloved characters, but my best friend basically still can't stand him because of just how much of an abrasive dick he was in the beginning. Which is funny because, he's a fan of Vegeta, but let's not get into that. But the point was he was always supposed to be, on the hero track. He was always supposed to be one of the good guys, and that just doesn't track because of his attitude, right? Which, yeah, I can kind of understand why, if I'm honest. Ugh, nose itchy. So, yeah. Then there's Largo, who just does not like Wilkin being this, a greenhorn who basically gets all the accolades. Which is funny because if they were paying attention, Wilkin was actually not was actually questioning why the hell is he getting interviewed. So there's that. Then there's Isara, which I do like that they avoid the whole problem of. By the way, Largo is awesome. Listen, I don't really have too much more to say about him right this second, but yeah. Isara is a character that I actually kind of like, even though her butting heads with Rosie it gets old after a while. But that's more on Rosie's side than on hers, but I digress. So then, and when we get to Rangries, we find out that there's mandatory military courses in school and conscriptions. The idea basically being because the Empire is busting down their doors, they are conscripting people into the militia in order to fight. Which apparently the militia is only utilized for. Sorry, Already adjusting my camera. Is only utilized for invasions, right? That's actually a plot point in Valkyria Chronicles 2. Where the main army is different from the militia, and the militia do not you would not you don't get the militia to fight a civil war, which is the whole crux of that storyline. So there's that. So the conscriptions actually make sense. So that's kind of cool. We're also introduced to Captain Varrot and General Damon, one of which got a story plus, and one who is my floor for most hated characters. I hate General Damon. General Damon is well, I might have to reevaluate getting a fucking haircut. But no, what I mean is I may have to actually reevaluate my opinion on Duke Cayenne from Trails of Cold Steel, 1 and 2. Because for as terrible of a Krennic as he was, General Damon is like the epitome of a Krennic. Not understanding that he is low on the fucking totem pole. He thinks he's hot shit when it comes to dealing with Sylvaria. And, well, we all saw how great that was. Then we're introduced to Miss Ellett, our narrator. I wrote down her name on my third page here. Yes, Irene Ellett, aka Irene Kohler. Basically, when she publishes the book that is this storyline, which is why the menu and navigating through the cutscenes and the maps is in a book, by the way. Yeah, that's actually why, because that they're fuck off, buddy. Because Miss Ellett is actually the one who's narrating to us after she gets married, which is kind of funny. Already mentioned Rosie and her racism. So then we have Operation Cloudburst, where Vulcan makes a bet with Largo. I will have Vassal Bridge, which was taken by the Empire, back in Gallian hands in 48 hours. If not, then I'll hand the squad over to you, Largo. And Largo just laughs at that, like, well, your funeral, boss man. And then he succeeds, and yeah. Of course, naturally, Rosie still isn't going to let go of her hate boner for Darksons, because why would she do something logical like that? So then we're introduced to our villains. Gregor, who is a racist twatwaffle, a racist, classist twatwaffle who needs to just go the fuck away. Hey, Jaeger, who is just frickin' awesome. Sylvaria, who got 2 story positives to Jaeger's 1. And Maximilian, which I thought was going to get a story plus, but he ended up just being kind of a terrible villain, so he ended up getting a negative. It's mostly just because they don't do anything with Maximilian. So you can see where the focus was. It was all on Sylvaria. Now, I've already talked about the Darkson Calamity, the whole Valkyria rewriting history thing. Let's talk about why Sylvaria showing up during the Batamus fight is actually awesome instead of awful. It's because it's great storytelling, and she actually does play fair, believe it or not. Oh, sure, you can't damage her while she's in Valkyria mode because of the power of the Valkyrie and whatnot, but it's still actually kind of fun to try and avoid her while trying to deal with that, which is funny because after the end of that chapter, after Vulcan actually fires a tank shell at her, and she just splits it clean in half. And I love that she acknowledges that she actually basically praises the Gallian army, or at least is like, not bad, because of the whole I see Gallia has the will to live, or the will to win, excuse me, thing, which is honestly kind of fun. All right, so then there's the woodland snare. I mentioned I hated these maps. I love this chapter story-wise. Because Welkin and Alicia get separated, they go through that stupid stealth mission, which is awful, and then they go ahead and get to this cabin. So then you think that a soldier has found them, but it's actually a soldier who's been shot, and he's dying, and as a result, he's delirious. They try to give him medical attention to kind of save his life, but in the end, he dies. And then his squad shows up the next morning, and, well, yeah. Welkin also mentioned the loss of his mother because, which kind of led to his love of nature. Which is funny because I mentioned as I was rating this that I feel like Welkin is wise without has wisdom but not arrogance, which is a good thing. I need to check the time. Okay, no, I'm still good. He has wisdom, but he doesn't have arrogance, which actually is kind of a cool thing. So then, Fritz's squad shows up, and they they basically like hold them up. They don't just shoot right away because they're not monsters. These particular Imperials are not monsters. They actually go and look in the cabin, and it's like, oh, oh, there's there's signs of medical attention. One of the soldiers literally looks in the cabin and then says, "There's signs of medical treatment inside the cabin, sir." And then the commander just looks at them and is like, "Why? Why did you have to save his life?" And he said, and Welkin says point blank, because he was delirious. He kept calling out for his mother. And then his squad are just like, we always did tease him about being a mama's boy. But now, sorry, Fritz. They actually regret losing him, which is just beautiful. It's a beautiful scene. It's just, I hate those maps. So then Largo basically gets enthusiastic about doing a mission to effectively go stop the Imperials from causing produce prices from skyrocketing. Yeah, he's that enthusiastic. He wants to go open up a veggie farm, and by all accounts does so at the end of the game, which is awesome. Let's see. So then we have the mission where Princess Cordelia, where Princess Cordelia makes her on-screen debut, as well as Prime Minister Borg, played by Dwight Schultz. Did I mention the voice acting is amazing in this game? Yeah, Dwight Schultz actually plays two roles. This is Prime Minister Borg and Georgios Geld. I actually wrote it in my notes twice, but yeah. I actually didn't really talk about it because it was more spoilery and I didn't really want to spoil. And I also forgot. But I do like the very nature of dealing with the kidnapping because, yeah, it actually worked for what it was. And I do like that you have to shoot with bullets at the radiator to stop the armored car. So there's that. So then we get the beach episode, which you would think would be all about the fan service, but it's actually more characterization. including Virat literally is telling Largo when Largo starts telling stories because they know each other from before, from the first European War. Or Virat is just like, Largo, no Frederick stories. More on that later. So then we're introduced to Zaka, like I said before. He's awesome. He really does feel like... He feels like a... Another fucking on attack. No, in all seriousness, Zaka feels like he's another one of these wiser characters where he feels like he... How do I put this? He feels like he understands that revenge is just a pointless cause and that he shouldn't bother with it. So, which is funny because this is the 1000 chapter is also where Rosie's racism starts to go down because, well, I guess I'll talk about it now. Because Rosie's racism was more of a venting process than actual hatred. Because, and I know how this is going to sound, but Rosie actually was confronted with real racism. Because when they burn Thousand, they force the people into the encampment thing, and they set fire to it. They killed a bunch of slaves, is basically the gist of that. Oh, that actually hurts. That actually hurts. And of course, Rosie wants to get revenge because what else does she have other than her anger, right? But no, Rosie starts to realize where her racism is from and, well, realizes, thankfully in time, that there is no reason for her to be racist. Because she isn't racist, simply put. She never has been. And she doesn't really has been. She's just been angry about losing her family to a Darkson hunt. She acknowledges that it was misplaced, and that's the other reason why she avoids Oscar syndrome, because we only learn her backstory after her racism is broken, and she also has it spat back in her face. In other words, they did something with her racism, and I applaud that. But no sooner had Rosie's racism begun to break than Isara died. Pointlessly. To a stray bullet. Oh. And you notice it wasn't Welkin who screamed out Isara's name at the end of her death scene. It was Rosie. Because Rosie's character arc effectively concluded at this point. Because, well, that was the moment when her racism effectively died. Yeah. 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 There are not very many deaths in fiction that can hit me. It can actually make me cry. I'm actually tearing up just a little bit just thinking about it, but no, I cried at this one. On the screen, the tears actually just came out and was just like, I couldn't control it. I actually cried on camera. If you want to call me a wimp for that, well, fuck you. I'm sorry, but if you're gonna call me a wimp or pussy or whatever for that, no, straight up, fuck you. Okay, because Isara was awesome and her death fucking hit. Sorry, just. Ugh. And then Isara's funeral. Oh, that song Rosie sings. Oh, it's hitting me. I'll admit, the tears didn't actually start flowing until the funeral. It was the funeral where I cried, and it was just. Ugh. 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 Is it any wonder with how close Isara and Rosie were that not only would she be the last, she'd be the one to scream out her name at the end of that at the end, but not only be the one to sing, but also to be the one to start or wanting to deal with the Darks and Hunts and put them to an end. Yeah. Ugh. Which leads to a great scene where Captain Virat literally requested reclaiming Brule was something that Squad 7 should do. Because of Isara. Because the squad cared about Isara. Oh my god. It is hitting me a little bit. I'm not actually joking. I mean, yeah, my nose was bugging me earlier, but oh my god. Oh god. Yeah. Ugh, I need to tape this or something. Anyways. Yeah. So we reclaim Brule, and that's where when in my gameplay section I mentioned the whole gameplay story integration thing, which was awesome. So then we get the battle in the Magyar Plains where General Damon is a complete frickin' moron. Because he thinks sending wave after wave of soldiers is going to defeat Sylvaria while she's utilizing the power of the Valkyria. Send some more farmhands out there. Yeah, this and him frickin' his arrogance, him being douchey enough to basically tell Virat to recruit more farmhands to die. Like, wait, are we sure this isn't just a dramatic retelling of the story of Crom's dad from Fire Emblem Awakening? Jesus Christ. Now General Damon is who I'm gonna think of when I think of Crom's dad. Ugh. But yeah. So then we get a scene of Sylvaria's loyalty, of why she took up the lance and shield in the first place, despite her not liking the glow of Ragnite. Excuse me. We try to survive Sylvaria while we try to reclaim the camp. And then Alicia is shot. by Faldio. Because, well, he claims that we need our own Valkyria in order to... Well, simply put, we need our own Valkyria in order to balance the scales. And, of course, Vulcan disagrees with that. Me, I kind of understand. I kind of understand that. I also like that they don't really spend too much time dwelling on the mystery. It's pretty much just just do the chapter. Do the chapter where have it revealed just before Alicia wakes up with the Valkyrie power, and have it and reveal that it's a galleon bullet. Then we deal with those tanks that I mentioned that conveniently pop out right when Alicia's power runs out. Then we, of course, get Faldio's choice. Because Faldio basically had a choice. Does he betray his best friend to try and save the country, or does he value friendship over that? He had to make a tough call. Whether or not he made the correct call, I leave that up to you to decide. Well, okay, the right call. Let me be more clear with my terms. The right call. Whether or not you want to say that's the right or the wrong call, that's fine. It was the correct choice, but not the moral choice, in my opinion. So, it turns out that the whole idea of the correct thing to do was not the moral thing to do. So then we get a bunch of reports at this point, after the Faldio report, that it is the only mandatory report thing, right? And then we're introduced to Georgios Geld. So, Verrot claims that they're going after a man named Georgios Geld who takes hostages, and basically the idea is he deserves no mercy. This is where we got to talk about the poison of revenge. Two big topics here. First off is the poison of revenge. And the second is, should Batman kill the Joker? Now, I know that's a weird... That may sound like a weird out of nowhere thing, but I swear it's related, right? And the fact that Georgios Geld is so goddamn evil, you probably don't know where I'm going with that. See, Georgios Geld is a monster. Let's just go ahead and say that. He has no problem torturing and killing victims just frickin' cuz. Right? It's to the point where frickin' Maximilian even basically proclaims, yeah, this guy needs to be killed by fire. Is going to be put to death by the firing squad. Fuck him. Right? So, credit there, Maximilian. And of course, let's tackle the Batman, the question of whether or not Batman should kill the Joker thing first, because that is a question that has popped up. Why does Batman not just go shunk and just kill the Joker? Well, the way I want to phrase it is actually very simple. And I'll just read my note word for word because it sums it up perfectly. Batman shouldn't kill the Joker. We should. Right? Forgive me for plugging other internet reviewers, but Linkara, in his Top the Fourth Wall episode on the Batman storyline Hush, brought this up. The idea is that you shouldn't blame Batman for just letting, if you shouldn't, Batman should not be blaming himself for all of the people, to quote The Dark Knight Returns Part 2, the movie specifically, all the graveyards I've filled by letting you live. Right? Because it's true. Basically, in The Dark Knight Returns, there's a guy, I forget his name, but there's a psychiatrist dude who's super anti-Batman because he thinks he can cure the Joker of his psychoses, of his mental illness. Now, admittedly, we can debate whether or not he was just a hack or whatever, but this particular, whether or not that guy's kind were hacks, but uh, this one particular guy from The Dark Knight Returns was a frickin' hack. Because, again, the Joker is not, well, okay, depending on which version of the Joker you're talking about, more often than not, the Joker isn't so much insane so much as he's evil. There is a bit of insanity to him, but the funny thing is that he's more just evil and trying to amuse himself rather than something you can be cured. And that just begs the question, right? How many resources do you have to waste to try to rehabilitate somebody like the Joker, right? After the 10th time, I think it's time to throw him into the electric chair, flip the switch, and just let the bastard fry. I mean, I hate to say it like that, but at the same time, how, again, it all boils down to the question of how do you deal with something that evil, right? Then there's the poison of revenge. See, Captain Varrot stayed in the military because for a chance at killing Georgios Geld, and Largo stayed in the militia for for Eleanor, because Largo cares. In some ways, you could even say Largo loves Eleanor, and just wants to be there for his friend. And that's why Largo basically draws the line at, I am going to execute this fucker myself. Oh, I'll take full responsibility, blah blah blah. And that's when he finally slaps her and is just like, no, stop it. Just stop it, Elle. Hell, he didn't want to slap her, but what other choice did he frickin' have? Revenge will leave you empty. Sure, you can hate him. I'll even kill him. But in the end, what's that going to leave you? Yeah. And that's what snaps Eleanor out of it. Great stuff. Then there's the Darkson hunts, as I said, which I've already talked about because it's where Rosie's racism is, and now I'm on my final page of notes. So then, and then we get the report that takes place right after Alicia was shot, which makes no sense really timeline-wise, IMO, but whatever. So then there's a little girl who talks about how Alicia taught her the language of flowers. That's a great scene. And it was a really heartwarming thing that snaps him out of it. So here's an interesting dichotomy between Sylvaria and Alicia. Sylvaria accepted the powers and was punished for it. Alicia rejected the powers and was rewarded. Now, I don't think that's... I don't honestly think that was an on-purpose thing, but a frickin' yawn attack, again. God damn it. But at the same time, it's just kind of interesting to note. So then we fight Sylvaria and defeat her. General Damon is unnecessarily really brutal with her because why wouldn't he be? He's General Fuckwad. Then Sylvaria commits suicide. Uses the Valkyrie's final flame. While still hoping Maximilian gains glory. Loyal to the end. I can respect that, even if I don't like it. Bye, General Damon. You were a complete fucking waste of a character. Moving on. Speaking of wastes of a character, this is where Prime Minister Borg drops his mouse, because of course he does. No, okay, we're still recording. Okay. Sorry about that. Drops his, but no, Prime Minister Borg, who also was all for the frickin' alliance with the Federation, which led to Cordelia's kidnapping, by the way, showing that the Federation are not any better in terms of, which side, in terms of sides. And we find out he's a raving jackass. Because he effectively is made a deal with Maximilian to basically become the king of Gallia. That is his entire character, by the way. His ambition. He has like three scenes. And depending on how you score the stretch of scenes. And it's pathetic. He is pathetic. Screw that screw you, Prime Minister Borg. You suck. So then there's Alicia basically saying that taking down the Marmota has been her destiny. That's another stupid point, by the way, because no. just no. Just no. It's dumb. Moving on. But it leads to something good as Vulcan talks Alicia down from sacrificing herself for taking down the Marmota, which is good. So then we fight Jaeger to effectively reclaim Vassal again, which is which leads to an actually great scene where he effectively is like, you know what, I'm done. Tell Maximilian that, the militia are not to be underestimated, and that, brute strength alone will not win this war. That kind of a thing. Which is awesome. Then Maximilian gets to Grand Grise, and it turns out that Cordelia is actually a Darkson, not a Valkyr. Yeah, I'll admit, I didn't see that twist coming, which is actually pretty cool. Cool. So that's also where we get the true backstory, as I already described it. So then we get the big march to the final battle scene, where where Miss Ellett reveals that she's going to change from Irene Ellett to Irene Kohler after the war, because, well, she's getting married. She has a fiance, which is her boyfriend, which is actually kind of cool. We never meet the Kohler guy, by the way, to my knowledge, unless we meet him in one of the later games, but I don't think we do, so shrug. So then Maximilian's motive is basically, I will rule on high as Sultan, which the lore runner has used that phrase to make fun of villain motivations for years. It's applicable because that's really all we really get with him. So then we deal with the Marmota. Then we get the final showdown against Maximilian, which just does not work. Work narratively speaking, because he uses artificial Valkyria powers, and it's like, well, wait. If your Marmota is so freaking badass and awesome, why not just have Sylvaria as your other ace in the hole? Yes, they have a Valkyria, but then it's an even match of Valkyria versus Valkyria, right? And maybe Sylvaria could have taken another shot at preventing Alicia from giving you a weak point, which led to your defeat. Dumbass. So then we beat him down. Faldio sacrifices himself to take out Maximilian once and for all as atonement for his actions. He basically agrees with me on that it was the correct choice, but it was not the right choice. He betrayed his best friend, and that still deserves recompense. So then the Marmota starts blowing up with traps Welkin and Alicia on the Marmota, and then Leon shows, or is it Leon? Yes, Leon shows up and saves them with Isara's dream, because Isara always wanted her brother to fly. Welkin said once that he wanted to fly like a bird, and that was Isara's answer: a plane. Yeah. So then we get a nifty little scene about the aged gentleman knowing Wilkins' dad if you get the order recon request, which is the last scene, which leaves us with the DLC. So I've already talked about Challenge of the ED Detachment. There's no real story there. Then there's Enter the ED Detachment, which is basically a bunch of randos led by a shock trooper named Edie Nelson. So you have Edie Nelson, Susie Evans, Jan, who's a Jean, that's a Lancer. Sorry, his name is Jean. Homer, an engineer. Marina, a sniper. And Lynn, who's also a shock trooper. So the idea is you have to defend a camp while getting Edie to go and try and help. Getting Edie to go and try and help Rosie, who's apparently down. And it's like, what? It's fine. It's kind of harmless story wise, but gameplay wise, God, screw that map. So then there's Behind Her Blue Flame. This is the story of an Imperial engineer named Johann, who kind of, in a way, kind of befriends Sylvaria. Now, I have yet to actually get the supposed third chapter that happens if you get an A rank in both the first and second battles of that thing. And either way, Johann becomes a scout, and so effectively, he's probably one of the scouts that we've destroyed over the course of it. Maybe, I don't know. But it is interesting to think about, because he effectively was like, yeah, no, I'm going to fight for Sylvaria because I'm going to fight for my general because I've been inspired. Now, whether or not Johann had any romantic feelings for Sylvaria, I so would want to do a rewrite where Sylvaria survives, but regardless, yeah, no. Johann, I think, could have been interesting to talk if he had been able to be there and to put a bullet in frickin' in Damon's head, which would have been hilarious. A random frickin' scout just shows up out of nowhere. Here, pop, pop, pop. Up. I'm here to get you out of here, General. And it's like, but what? And it's like, well, no. His Grace Maximilian is giving me an order. And it's like, hey, the Valkyria Final Flame. Hey, the Valkyria Final Flame? What's that? I use up my Ragnite power, my powers to blow up this citadel. But wouldn't that get you caught up in the explosion too? Yes. Yes. He looks around. Ragnite storages. No, we're gonna make a bomb out of Ragnite, and we're gonna blow this place up. Man, the more I'm thinking about this, the more that works. Huh. Anyways. But yeah, no, so that's kind of a funny what if thing, but that's something to get into a bit later. Yeah. So then they get outside, and General Damon cements his third negative story by using poison gas, Ragnite gas specifically. So then Johann becomes a hero. He becomes a scout. And then victory. So there you go. I really do have to A rank those two maps at some point and go ahead and do that, because that actually sounds like that would be awesome. Anyways, and yeah, so that's it. That's Valkyria Chronicles. Guys. How long have I been going? Oh wow, about an hour and a half. But yeah, no, this game is easily one of my favorites of all time. I love the story. I love the gameplay of this thing. This was such a fun game to play. And really, my opinion was cemented. My opinion of this being one of my favorite games of all time was just cemented with this playthrough. So yeah, Valkyria Chronicles, ladies and gentlemen. I'm gonna go ahead and chop this off now. Next time. Next time, I'm just gonna go ahead and tell you guys is actually gonna be a rant view. Specifically, Fire Emblem Warriors. I'll see you next time, guys. Blue Wolf Alex of the Lore Walkers signing out. Have a good one. Play Valkyria Chronicles. It's a great game.
You stood, always smiling, ever quiet, ever tender, and I, a lost child, always frightened. I remember that you came and found me, blinded by unshed tears.